God. A God who knows how to deliver the godly out of difficulties. I trust that following this word, you were encouraged, you were buoyed up in your spirit, and you are provided with the impetus testing. Thank you. I was about to say that my hope is that you were provided with the impetus to press on, notwithstanding this difficult period through which you are traversing. At this time, as we bring the Thanksgiving service to a close, we have, and again I issue a word of consideration. We have Andrea Senior, who has two tasks. She'll be reading a written tribute, and additionally she will be providing us with a portrait of Sir MacDonald. That's the eulogy. And following that, we will have the prayer for the bereaved family members by Pastor. Following that, we will have a tribute in song from the siblings. And then right after that, we will have Everton and Pansy Williams, friends of the deceased, giving us their tribute. And again, we're asking, you don't need to provide any salutation before you do your tasks. We just ask that you get right to your tasks so we can proceed.
Good afternoon, family and friends. I have a tribute from Uncle Gerald's very good friend, Peter Davis. So it says, tribute to Gerald MacDonald. Having heard of Gerald's death, my initial plan was to attend in person at his Thanksgiving service to play the organ. However, unfortunately, the date clashed with my son's Craig's wedding. Most of you are aware that Gerald and I have been very close. I call him my bigger brother, having known him all my life and the relationship we shared. I have numerous fond memories of Gerald. In the early days, he operated a trucking business, which was the main source of transportation for folks from the cool hills of Havigat and Thomas, and in particular, the farmers to get their produce to the market. Later, Gerald also operated a bus that transported individuals between Kingston, St. Andrews, St. Catherine, and Clarendon. His bus was also the main source of transportation for the many church trips and other excursions. Gerald was always willing and ready to give sound advice and to lend a helping hand. My family and I have benefited from his wealth of knowledge and experience in business and other areas of life. We traveled throughout Jamaica when I operated a van sales business. He was always dependable, trustworthy, and honest. We rarely had some memorable times. These I will also cherish. As I bid farewell to my friend and big brother, I extend sincere condolences to his family and friends who will agree with me that we have lost someone who was very dear to us. The golden morning is fast approaching. Jesus soon will come to take his faithful and happy children to their promised home. Let's hold fast that this blessed hope. Lovingly submitted, Peter David. Life is but a stopping place, a pause in what's to be, a resting place along the road to sweet eternity. Louis MacDonald, also known as Gerald, Daddy, Grandpa, Uncle Gerald, Brother Mac, or Mr. Mac, was born on February 10, 1947, in the cool hills of Epping Farm, located in the Blue Mountain Range in St. Thomas, to parents Arabeth and Edison MacDonald. He was the second child of his mother and the fourth child of his father. He attended the Minto Elementary School in the parish of St. Thomas, where he was very successful in the first Jamaica local examination, which he passed with honors. He also attended Penline Castle School, where he succeeded in the Jamaica Secondary Certificate, or JSC exam. He did very well in school and particularly loved mathematics. His teachers were always incredibly proud of his performance whenever school inspectors visited. His favorite childhood games were cricket, marbles, and gig. He also made toy trucks with wood, rubber, and zinc. His love for the game of cricket continued through to adulthood, and he loved to discuss the game with his family and friends. One day, when Gerald was approximately 8 years old, he and his brother Sidney were playing in the yard of the Terry Garden Hotel, where his parents, grandparents, and other family members worked. In the hotel's yard were two horses, owned by their grandfather Papi and their uncle Marsoni. While playing different games, Flora, which was Marsoni's horse, suddenly threw her two front legs on Gerald's shoulder, pushing him to the ground. Sidney, his brother Sidney, quickly used his bat to kick Flora in the face and shouted at her. Sidney ran inside the hotel to get help because the horse had pawed down Gerald. Luckily, Gerald was spared any serious injury. One Thursday afternoon, when Gerald was about 11 years old, he and his brother Sidney were taking farm produce to Mahogany Vale, about 4 miles from their home in Epping Farm. While on the way, Gerald suddenly started crying. Sidney asked what was wrong. With tears in his eyes, Gerald responded that the turnip was heavy. Sidney then took a bundle from him. After they arrived at Mahogany Vale and put down their load, Gerald started to cry again and said that he was now unable to turn his neck. On their journey home, Gerald with determination said, "When we grow big, we must buy a truck to carry Yaya back," referring to his mother as Yaya. And he did buy several trucks, a testament to his unwavering determination. Gerald became a Seventh-day Adventist in his teenage years and was a member of the Haggai Seventh-day Adventist Church. When he moved to Kingston, he would sometimes visit the Meadowvale SDA, but would still visit the Haggai SDA Church with his good friend, Brother Hardy, even decades later. Gerald's first official job was with the Geological Survey Department. He and his brother Sidney worked with this organization, searching for minerals, especially copper. They would dig holes 2 feet deep in the ground, then take soil samples and place them in bags. Then the geologists would take the samples and test for the presence of copper. After completing this job, he attended an agricultural school in Twickenham Park. He then used his expertise to plant flowers, vegetables, coffee, and Christmas trees for sale. Gerald was then employed at the Palisades Airport, now known as the Norman Manley International Airport. There he received training in rescue operations, including swimming. As such, he was an excellent swimmer. Gerald learned to drive as a teenager and was taught by his friend, famed brother George Hardy. In December 1966, Gerald's father, Baba, bought him a Land Rover, and that marked the beginning of his long and illustrious career in transportation. He used the Land Rover to carry piglets and farmers to the Coronation markets in Kingston. He purchased another Land Rover with his earnings from the first one. Then he bought one Bedford truck, and then he bought another. After selling one of the Bedford trucks, he purchased a Fargo truck. After that, he bought a $250,000 bus, and our country was named Kemar Transport after his last son. He also bought a Leland tipper truck. During this time, he also purchased 2 cars, mainly for his personal use. Brother Mac, as his passengers affectionately called him, became the chief provider of transportation for the communities of Penline Castle, Epping Farm, Minto, Aglia, Mount Charles, Maidisbag, and other surrounding communities, including Nexcastle and Bethel. His bus routes ran from Kingston to Spanish Town, Macon, and even to Chapeltown. He would also use his bus to transfer churchgoers on beach trips and to funerals. He was very popular, and his passengers loved him. As such, he received the Community Champion Award from the Austin Russell Foundation. One Sunday morning, while Gerald was still driving a Land Rover, he was driving from Maidisbag to Papini. After passing a car traveling in the opposite direction, and we heard some of this before, after passing a car traveling in the opposite direction, he glanced in his rearview mirror and saw the car heading over the precipice. He parked his vehicle and went down the precipice, where he rescued Mr. Kermit McGann and Mr. Martin Davis from the crashed car. He brought them back to the road and took them to the hospital. When asked how he managed to do such a huge feat, he reminded them of his training in rescue operations that he received while working at the airport, and that he knew exactly how to place persons across his shoulders to bring them to safety. Gerald lost his father while he was in his late teens. So as soon as he started working and earning, he took over the provider role for his family. Every week, one of his family members could go to Harley Gap to Miss Madame's shop to collect a box of groceries he had already paid for. He would ensure his family would have a Merry Christmas by buying them a turkey and lots of drinks. He provided his younger siblings with lunch money, books, and other school supplies. Gerald wanted to pursue a higher education. However, his father's early death, his subsequent role as provider for his family, and his ability to earn a decent income from his transportation business caused him to change his mind. In 1974, Gerald married his childhood sweetheart, Elaine, who many of us know as Venus. Their union produced 4 sons: Ainsley, Dwight, Louis Jr., and Kemar. All of them tall, dark, and handsome, just like their daddy. Sadly, Gerald was predeceased by 2 of his sons. Louis Jr., who we all know as Georgie, died tragically in 1993 at the age of 21. Gerald was never the same after George's passing. He also experienced the loss of a son in 2017 when his son, Dwight, passed. Uncle Gerald loved to play Scrabble with his family. He regularly played Scrabble with his sons Ainsley and Dwight, his niece Christine, and his cousins Flossie and Dawn whenever they visited. He was a walking thesaurus, and hardly anyone could beat him in this game. Mr. Mac also loved to sing, especially hymns that he would sing out loud from memory. His favorite hymn was "Great is Thy Faithfulness." Gerald loved food. and was known to have a very healthy appetite. His favorite meal was salt mackerel with 3 bananas. He also loved fresh fish, vegetables, and fruits, with his favorite fruit being custard apple. He preferred eating more natural or more unprocessed food. He believed strongly in the use of herbal home remedies over the use of traditional medicine. Mr. Mark maintained excellent health throughout most of his life, never acquiring any of the 3 lifestyle diseases that most Jamaicans acquire once they become a senior citizen, or even before. He was never diabetic, hypertensive, or had high cholesterol. This can only be attributed to his healthy eating habits. He also loved to cook, preferring to cook for himself rather than having others cook for him. And whenever he was at home, he would always eat around the dining table with a knife and fork. Being very hard-working and progressive, Uncle Gerald bought his house in Valentine Gardens in Kingston at the tender age of 27 and lived there until his passing. Throughout this time, he welcomed many of his relatives into his home to live, myself and my sister included. Whether it was for us to be closer to school, to start life, or if we just needed some time to figure out life. Being very hardworking and ambitious, he enjoyed being in the company of people who were just the same. If anybody was doing anything to improve their life, for example, by going to school or trying to achieve goals, you just need to tell Brother Mark about it, and he would throw his entire support behind it. He would have helped not just his immediate family with their education, but also his extended family. He would ensure that all their school supplies were taken care of, and even transport them to school on his bus. His brother Sidney expressed that Brother Mark not only helped him acquire land in Lewisburg, but also helped him transport building materials to construct his house. And then there's my own experience of how he jumped at the opportunity to help me look at houses to ensure that I chose and bought a decent house in a decent neighborhood. One day in 2019, I stopped by his house after viewing a house on Sunrise Crescent, which is the street behind where he lives. Immediately, he said to me, no, you shouldn't be looking at houses in this area. I told him I had made an offer on one in Mona, but wasn't sure if I would get it. He said, just let me change my shirt, we will go look at it. We went, Uncle Gerald opened the gate, entered the yard, and walked around. Despite me standing outside on the sidewalk and warning him that he was trespassing. He called the neighbors and asked them about the area, whether there had been flooding, if the house had experienced significant damage, and if the neighborhood was safe. Only an intelligent businessman would ensure the neighbors answered these questions, because a real estate agent wouldn't. He then took me to see his friend, Mr. Algrove, and then up to Stony Hill, where he told me, these are the neighborhoods that you should be looking for houses to buy. My uncle was wise and supportive and wouldn't allow me to spend money on foolishness. He gave me his blessing on the house in Mona, and I was able to buy it. Uncle Gerald was generally a caring person, but was even more of a softie when it came to women. Whenever helping a woman, he would say, I have a daughter, and I wouldn't like her to be in this situation, and nobody is there to help her. He was every man to the women in his family, whether he would be a plumber, mechanic, gardener, or teacher. Mr. Mark was even a caregiver to his mother in her latter years when he brought her from Epping Park to live with him in Kingston. When asked, so who will bathe her? His tone when answering that question, that he would bathe her, suggested that he thought that was a ridiculous question. Grandpa Gerald was a consummate grandfather. He spoke fondly of his grandchildren. He would keep me up to date on his granddaughter, Jalisa. Jalisa was his gift from his beloved son, Georgie, and he was very pleased to have her. I remember Devon and Deandra, as little children, would come to the house running around and playing and chatting with him. Deandra would have a million things to tell him and a million questions to ask him. He would happily answer all 1 million questions. In one of his last phone conversations with her, I watched as he used all his energy to feign being well, just to protect her from the seriousness of his situation. One day when I stopped by his house, I saw an interesting-looking toy bird hanging from the entrance of his veranda. I wondered why a grown man would have this bird hanging right there. When I asked, he said it was a toy that belonged to Lafita's children and that they gave it to him on their last visit. He spoke about their recent visit and how much he enjoyed it. I thought to myself, nothing more than he placed that bird at that spot so that he could proudly start a conversation about his grandchildren. Uncle Gerald loves all his grandchildren and they too enjoyed spending time with him. One evening when I was living with Uncle Gerald, his friend, a truck driver, stopped by with his wife. His friend's wife saw the tiny car I was driving then and warned me not to let Uncle Gerald drive my car. A truck him drive, you put heavy, don't make him drive your car. However, one early morning, about 2 a.m., I woke him up and asked him to take me to the hospital because I had an unbearable headache. And his friend's wife was right. I didn't know whether I should cry for my head, cry for the car, or because I didn't think we were going to make it to the hospital alive. We made it, and the hospital decided to keep me on observation for a few hours. And my Uncle Gerald stayed by my side and waited patiently. Fast forward almost 2 decades, and the table turned 180 degrees. I was the driver to the hospital, and Uncle Gerald was my passenger. I had volunteered to take him and pick him up from his appointment. I would have to keep track of his appointments on my own because he would never remind me. It's likely he felt as if he reminded me about his appointments. It would mean he was reminding me to pick him up, and he wanted to retain his independence. Last year, when Uncle Gerald was discharged from the hospital, he was rather pleased with himself. He was wearing a pair of shorts that his son Kamar bought him. These shorts were shorter than he was accustomed to because he was now wearing a smaller size of clothes. He laughed out loud and said, "I feel like a little boy in these shorts. I'm green, I feel like I'm your little brother, and you're my big sister." And that is how my Uncle Gerald redefined our relationship. That was how he told me I would need to stick by his side and care for him like a big sister would take care of a little brother. From that day, he greeted me as big sister, and I would greet him as little brother. On several occasions, Uncle Gerald said to me, "When you're sweet, they suck you out. When you're sour, they spit you out." He used to say this when feeling despondent. He would feel as if he gave so much to others and that they were less than grateful. However, God sent an army of angels to care for Uncle Gerald when he needed them the most. Family and friends stopped by to visit to bring him good cheer. Some brought home-cooked meals, some brought groceries and his favorite fruits, some brought medical supplies, some helped to clean the house, some to clean the yard, some came to spend the weekend with him when we didn't have a weekend caregiver. Some helped us to find caregivers. Some sent money, some even did repairs to the house. And some visited only with me because they didn't want to cry. Uncle Gerald's daughter Lafita led this army of angels. Lafita's love for her father was unwavering, resolute, and steadfast. She took on the role of being his full-time provider. If there was anything that Lafita did not provide for her father, it was only because it was impossible for her to do so. The Bible said, Honor your mother and father so that you will live long on the earth. Lafita, you're going to live till them son. God also sent Dr. Colton Lewis in his army of angels. Dr. Lewis is my sister's colleague and friend. Dr. Lewis was at Gerald's house many late nights offering free medical care. And yes, free. Not even just money. When Uncle Gerald was stubborn, Dr. Lewis was patient. Dr. Lewis wrote many prescriptions and turned up at the emergency room whenever we brought Uncle Gerald there to ensure that we got through quickly. He also visited Uncle Gerald on the ward so that he could keep us up to date on his treatment and so that Uncle Gerald would do well looked after. Uncle Gerald showed his gratitude. He said, "Look downstairs in the kitchen cupboard, you see a bottle of whiskey. Give it to Dr. Lewis." This army had two other godsends, Nurse Scarlett Wilson and caregiver Miss Suzanne Mosley. Ladies, your reward will have to be heaven, because we cannot repay you for the love and care you gave Gerald, or the level of safety and security you gave to Lafita, me, and Auntie Rosie when we couldn't be by his side 24/7. However, on Sunday the 21st of April, the last day I saw Mr. Mark, I had to cut off Nurse Wilson on his behalf when he complained that she was waking him up too early in the morning. I asked him why they were waking him up that early, and he said, "Text them to the mother." I told him I'd cut them off, and he said thanks. Uncle Gerald was no longer interested in taking more tests. He wanted to rest. On Wednesday, the 24th of April, at approximately 4:35 a.m., Louis McDonald, Gerald, Daddy, Grandpa, Brother Mac, Daddy Mac, Mr. Mac took his final rest. We are comforted that he strengthened his relationship with God before he passed. He would ask his caregiver, Miss Dunkley, to read Bible verses, sing, and pray with him. Psalms 5 was one of his favorites. He would also raise his hands to the heaven as he prayed and reconnected with God. Mr. Mack died leaving 3 brothers, 9 sisters, his daughter Lafita, sons Ainsley and Kamar, 12 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, 69 nieces and nephews, and a host of cousins, relatives, and friends. Uncle Gerald, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he show his face to you and have mercy on you. Rest in peace, my Uncle Gerald. Rest in peace, Mr. Marshall.
This is just what heaven means to me. A country where there is, a country where no twilight shadows deepen.
We've announced Everton and Nancy Williams. They're not, okay. Alright, very well. We're going to invite Pastor Beckford now to come forward and offer a word of prayer for the bereaved family. Then he will provide some instructions. Following that, we will have the recessional hymn, and then we will make our way from here to the Duckbutt Memorial Gardens.
As the bereaved family remains seated, the rest of us please stand. Bereaved family remain seated, the rest of us please stand. Let's pray. Let's pray. Gracious Father in heaven, we thank you that you are present every time on trouble. May you comfort the bereaved family. May you heal their broken hearts. May you continue and remind them that their days are coming. Thank you for hearing and answering our prayers. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Amen. Please be seated.
While we await the instructions, there's just one thing that I am mindful of, and that is we will be provided with police escort. That's my understanding. We're going to be asking you to comply with the police officer or officers as they take us along. Keep orderly, stay within the path that is provided. So we will be having a police escort, which will make the transit, very efficient.
All right, thank you, Andy. Thank you so very much. At this time, we are going to be recessing to the place of interment, and as you have heard just now, we will proceed orderly to the place of interment. The recessional hymn is when peace like a river. After the singing of the first stanza and chorus, and ask the pallbearers to assume their position. And then we will file out in this order. We will have the platform party, then the immediate family, other well-wishers, and mourners. We will proceed in that order. Thank you for noting. So at the appropriate time, we're asking us please to stand, and we will sing at the end of the first stanza. We're asking the pallbearers to assume your positions. And then the platform party will proceed, then the casket, the immediate family members,